Hi everybody, I hope y'all are doing well. I wanted to make y'all a video today to talk about thoughts. So thoughts is something I hear come up quite often with non-dual circles. And, we get a lot of questions. Do thoughts stop? Do thoughts disappear? Does the person just leave? Does the self go away and not have any personal thoughts anymore? What is it that happens with thoughts? So I wanted to share my own personal experience. I can't speak to others because I have heard other speakers speak about that their thoughts have stopped and that their thoughts have gone away or that their self has completely gone. Now, there is no self, so there's nowhere for the self to go. There is no self. But there are thoughts that come and there's a sense of ownership to it. So that is, I think, what they mean by self. But ultimately, there is no self, so it really can't go anywhere. It is just what is happening. So with thoughts, something does happen. Prior to the shift that I had a lot of thoughts. I had a lot of thoughts that were very personal thoughts. There were thoughts that just, I don't know how to explain it, but there were so many thoughts. I can compare it now and see just how many thoughts I was having, and it was a lot. And I assume that the majority of people experience the same sort of thing. And these thoughts can include just a reaction to pretty much everything that is happening. So the thoughts that I used to have would be very personal, like if I'd walk in a room and, I felt like I didn't belong, I would feel, oh, I feel like I don't belong, or I feel uncomfortable, or should I say something, or does this person like me, or maybe I should volunteer to do this, or maybe I should do that so that I could be more accepted here. Or I would have thoughts of, oh, does my hair look okay, or are people looking at my makeup, or people looking at my dress, or what did that person mean by that? And these stories can even evolve. So like, for example, that thought of, does that person think this of me? So let's say I meet a person. In the past, it would have been, we'd have an interaction and there might be something that I might hang on as far as something that we interacted about. And I could kind of ruminate on that over days, or who knows, maybe months, maybe years, wondering, what does that mean? Does that person just not like me? This and that. And it's not always negative, but a lot of times it was negative. And I think most people go through that. Everything becomes very personal. So I can even remember with my family, my daughter, my husband, my parents, things like that. Things would happen or discussions would happen, and sometimes I would hang on those things, and those thoughts would not only just be in that moment, they would grow. So if it was something with my daughter, let's say she was disrespectful about something, then it would grow. It'd be, oh, she is disrespectful and not grateful about such and such thing that actually happened, but the mind and the thoughts would take it further and say, well, the other day she also did this and she didn't say thank you, or the other day this happened and she didn't clean up and she was ungrateful. So these thoughts can kind of snowball and gradually get bigger. And these thoughts they're just there, and they take up so much space to the point where you can get very tired and stressed just from thoughts. Because I see the difference now, and I can share that with you, that after I had this shift, I'm not going to say that thoughts stopped, but they changed. They're sort of further away, like a distant person speaking, or like where my thoughts used to be here, I now feel them back here, like behind me. They're very distant, and when they come, especially if they're negative, or some of these thoughts that can really just take you down some rabbit hole to who knows what, those sorts of thoughts, they just sort of come really far away, and it's just like, oh, okay, you're there, but it doesn't ever make it to stick or to really get into your mind. It's just there. And it's not always there, but when it happens, if there are these sorts of thoughts, they're really far away. They're no more the center of attention. They're just not important. So thoughts in my case did not stop, but they certainly decreased a lot. So maybe the percentage of thoughts that I was having, let's say I was having 100% thoughts, personalized thoughts about literally anything and everything that was happening in my experience. Those thoughts that were personal thoughts have diminished to maybe 10%. So it's a huge difference, and you are much more relaxed. The stress levels are way less. You sleep very easily. You relax very easily. You move from situation to situation very easily. Nothing hangs you up. Nothing burdens you. Nothing weighs you down. You're just light. So when I enter a situation or anything that's happening in my experience, I can literally see and interact with what is actually happening. Whereas before, I wasn't seeing what was actually happening. When I'd go to, let's say, a conference or a group, a meeting, or something like that, I would walk in and instantly my thoughts would be around, where should I sit? Who do I know? What's going to happen? Do I feel comfortable? There'd just be all these personal thoughts that now I can't even really relate to. Some of them I can't even think of, but I know that they were there. Whereas now I walk into that same meeting or conference or whatever, and I literally can experience all of it. I can see all the people. I can listen to what's being said without personalizing it, without adding to it, without taking it and making it something that it's really not. Just experiencing what it really is. And it's amazing because there's just so much in life that I literally had never experienced because of these thoughts. These thoughts take you steps back from what's actually happening. So what's actually happening is literally what is happening. So you just experience what is. So if you're outside, and nature is really good for this because I used to really miss this in nature. I would be outside, but I'd be still in my own head, thinking about the things that happened that day, thinking about the things that are happening in the future, things like that. And you miss everything that's happening. You miss those butterflies that fly by. You miss the breeze. You miss the beautiful sunset. You miss the actual conversation you could be having with this child that's coming up to you and wanting your attention. You miss really getting to know your dog deeply, looking into their eyes, petting them, doing these things and being in that moment. Before my dog may have been there and I absolutely loved it. I would pet him and, but at the same time I was in my head a lot thinking about all of these things that were occurring at work, at home, to-do lists, what should I be doing instead of just sitting here, all of these thoughts that don't let you experience the actual arising. So now I get to know everything much deeper. When my dog comes up to me, I can see my dog and look at him in his eyes. I can pet him. I can see his reaction and see if he likes being pet behind the ears or if I should pet him somewhere else. And I can have a conversation with him if I want, or I can talk and look. And it's just so much deeper. So what this is all pointing to is that thoughts really are a distraction, a separation from what is. When you experience what is, you can experience so much deeper. First, you experience literally what it is that's happening. Then, the next step is that you experience it deeply. You begin to observe it more. And, as it arises, if it's like your pet, like I mentioned, it might come up to you and okay, you're in the moment, you are petting it, you're looking at its eyes. Then you get to know it deeper, and it's like this sense of connection and emotion from the dog, from you, together in that moment, not thinking about anything else. So what's happening is that, we are all one. It's just one. There is no self. So in these times that you can really connect and be in that moment, the next step of going deeper brings you into connection. So when you're in connection with your animal, with your child, with your husband, with your bed, with your pillow, with your TV, whatever it is that's occurring and arising in your situation, when you're in that moment, that's wonderful. And then you go deeper. It's another level. And now you're really deeply connected to it. And you can see the amazingness and how you are one with it. So it's a whole nother level of awareness. And it's not any better or worse. It's more positive. It's more connecting. It's more loving. So you're becoming back into the harmony of being in one. We are always in harmony. We are always one. But thoughts make us feel separate. It's not anything actually in our experience. It's not anything that's actually arising that keeps us separate. It's all in our mind and in our thoughts. So naturally with the shift, the thoughts diminish and then they go further away. So it's a form of silence that you experience that's not a silence like in meditation. It's a silence of the self. And when you have a silence of the self, you experience everything as it's happening, as it's occurring, and you experience it fully. So there is no, I've heard, and somebody actually emailed me something similar about bypassing, spiritual bypassing, or like bypassing of your emotions. Absolutely not. That's not what this is at all. And I want to really speak to that. I will speak more on this because lots of speakers like to talk about nothingness. And yes, that's true. It's nothingness. But nothingness does not mean no emotions, does not mean no connection, does not mean no human experience, does not mean no self experience. Okay? I realize there's no self here, but it is the one experiencing exactly what it wants to experience as this self, as this person that lives this life. I don't experience what you experience, but in the end, it's all being experienced by the one, experiencing itself in different ways. So to deny whatever is arising or my own experience is to deny what is. And what is everything. So I'd like to speak more towards everything. So having a no self is already the case. It's just a way that we express this in language because language is very dualistic. But what really is experiencing everything full on in the moment as it is, raw, without these thoughts, without these extra stories that aren't what actually is. So when there is an emotion, whether it's negative or positive in your opinion, I experience it fully. Whereas before, actually I had bypassing. Before the seeing was actually when you are bypassing emotions. And after the shift, you actually experience everything full on. So it's actually the opposite of what people are saying. So before, if I was upset or angry or something like that, a lot of times I would have that emotion, but then I would try to do things to cope with it in other ways. So distraction, in many different ways of distraction. Coping in ways of like self-indulgence, doing things to make the self feel better. That sort of thing. Where now, when any emotion comes up, even if it's a bad one, I've had some that I don't like maybe anxiety or a little bit of anger or something like that. But when it happens, and it happens pretty rarely to have those sorts of emotions, but when they happen, I fully experience them and I sit with them and I actually enjoy it. I'm like, wow, I just experienced anger, like all the way anger. And you sit with it and you almost like it. It's strange. So Whereas before it would happen and I would maybe even pace around, drink a glass of water, find something to do. But at the same time, all these thoughts were happening around it. I need to stop. I need to do this. I need to relax. I need to calm down. I need to apologize. I need to do this. Where now the emotion arises of anger, and it's, I'm angry. And you just totally feel the anger. And you just take the anger and you do what you need to do with it. You just do what you need to do with it. But there's no commentary behind it. You just feel it, express it in that moment, and just realize, wow, I just experienced anger. Like, this was anger. And it was meant to happen. It was meant to be experienced. It was amazing. I know that sounds strange, but it is the truth. And since these emotions, the more negative ones, happen more rarely, when they do happen, they can really be felt and embraced and worked through. So where they don't stick, where I can't even imagine what therapy or what talking to someone about issues would be like anymore. And that's crazy because I went to school for psychology. That's my field. And of course I see other individuals that are suffering with this, so I could still help them. Of course, I'm not doing it and they're not doing what they're doing. It's just all happening. But that's just my role and, what is happening. But for me personally, I can't comprehend how I would express issues to someone anymore that I personally have, because they don't stick. And when they happen, they're completely felt and processed to the very end, where they're just, it happens all the way and then it's just gone. So it's interesting. Thoughts still happen. I can still think, what am I going to make for dinner? What am I going to do with this or that? Or, there's still some planning and some thoughts happening. But most of the thoughts are not personal. And when they are personal, they're very far away, almost where you can't hear them. It's almost like a whisper. So all you really dealing with is what's actually happening. And there is just so much that is missed when you are in your head. And I can tell you that from experience. I'm speaking from my own personal experience. It was like a whole nother world was opened up to me that I had never seen, but has always been there. And that is what this shift is. It's not getting rid of the self. It's not saying I'm not going to be this personality. It's not saying I'm not going to experience these feelings that happen. It's not that I'm not going to hear any thoughts. No, it's I'm going to experience everything that's happening. Even these distant thoughts. But they just never make it up here. They just never make it there. And it's not because they're blocked. It's just because they're no longer needed. When you're experiencing what is, it's a complete and total relaxation. You realize what is, and then these distant thoughts that wanted to come here are like, oh, yeah, we don't belong there, and they leave. And so that's how that works. So in my experience, thoughts do continue. They're just a lot further away. And then when they do, if they ever do come, to the surface, they're dealt with and they're appreciated. And then they just leave. They just leave. So I wanted to share my thoughts on thoughts and the silencing of the self. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you're new here and you like these kind of videos, go ahead and subscribe. And I have my contact information and everything in the description boxes. I thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll have a great day.